we had no idea that a Canadian, Nick Taylor, was going to win the Canadian Open this past Sunday, and I'm really intrigued to hear what these two guys, both of whom tried to win this championship in their own country, feel about this. Zokol, you and Taylor are pals, at least know each other, right?
Sure. Yeah. And Lego knows him quite well as well, because he got him as his first client, I think, when you were in the agency business. But yeah, Nick Taylor is a BC boy from Ledgeview. My boys played junior golf with him, and he separated himself from other juniors in British Columbia when he was about 16, and he took off like a rocket and went to NCAA program, best amateur on the planet, got on the PGA Tour. It's not when you know, if you know Nick, you know that he's got a very stable mind and perspective, and it's not surprising. It's it was a great story, and hey, lots to talk about with this, because this curse of Pat Fletcher has been going on for far too long.
No, I know that those
Dan
days
Halderson says, Oak, as Dan Halderson says, we're not the tallest midget anymore.
I hated that comment. Always hated that comment. I wore Dan out for what the hell you
yeah,
killing
we
us.
all did.
It's tough enough as it is out here, being 3 or 4 Canadians.
Exactly.
But
Leggatt, you and I were members at the same golf course just north of Toronto, Goodwood. If I'm not mistaken, Nick Taylor was out there at least once. Did you invite him out there?
Yep. Yeah, it was, when I first started, as Oak said, I started at Wasserman, and I had an inline very early on with my relationship with Nick, just playing Canadian Open practice rounds with him when he was, the Canadian amateur champion. That was something that Weirzy and I, sort of did every single year during the Canadian Open. We always reached out to, that Canadian amateur champion that qualified to play in the RBC Canadian Open. I guess back then it would have been Bell and whatever else it was called. And we'd always play a practice round on Tuesday morning with them. And so we played with Nick. And it was interesting because when I started at Wasserman, we had a big debate internally amongst the agents with our executive team on who do we recruit, Nick Taylor or Matt Hill. So Nick Taylor was #1 amateur in the world. And that spring semester, Matt Hill had, one of the greatest college semesters in NCAA golf. So there was a big debate internally. Fortunately for Wasserman, I guess, I'm still waiting on my gift from them. I won that. I won that debate, and we actually put all our, efforts into recruiting Nick Taylor, which became a Wasserman client. So, as Zoke said, he's a very grounded, comes from a very stable family background. I think what's kind of tipped the table here for Nick is just his true belief in himself. It's hard to believe that, again, this stems back to our Canadian mentality, I think, in certain respects, is stepping forward and really believing you can be the best. And I think this victory came from that. It sounds like Dave Markle, his caddy, has contributed to that belief. It sounds like Nick has given him a lot of credit, and Nick having the belief in himself. And I think that needs to be the case with a lot of our Canadian guys. I think Taylor Pendrith is in that same camp. As soon as he believes he's a great player, he's going to they'll all start winning on tour. And I think that's a Canadian issue.
We have all watched hundreds, thousands of golf tournaments in our careers. We're all fans of the game. Have you ever seen a tournament concluded in the drama that this one did with a putt as long as the one that Taylor made on the 4th playoff hole? I don't remember one. I don't remember a shot as dramatic as that. Can either of you?
Well, I think we've seen some playoffs. I mean, we saw the Craig Perry hole out at Doral. He holed it from the fairway against Scott Verplank. I mean, but I don't think it had the gravity of the storyline.
Right.
No, did not even close, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, we've seen some unbelievable finishes with, holeouts on 18 to win tournaments. But I think the storyline this particular week, with everything with Liv, the PGA Tour stealing the story from RBC 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And really, when you looked on that leaderboard, I was talking to someone that about the other day, it could not have been better. The quality players in the field were on the top of that leaderboard going into Sunday. The field was weak, let's be honest. So, but
Sure
the quality players, the Rory McIlroy, CT Pan, Tommy Fleetwood, you know, we had Corey Connors, that the quality players were in the right spot, and a Canadian winning this thing in the fashion they did was incredible. And Zoe can speak to it. We talk about it. Every commentator will talk about it on the PGA Tour every single week, how difficult it is to follow up a serious low round like he put up on Saturday with a follow-up
decent
round on
round. Yeah,
Sunday.
exactly.
And he did it. So you know, I'm happy for RBC. I'm happy for Canadian golf, and more than happy, I'm happy for, you know, guys like Zoke and I, and, you know, Dave Bars and the Dan Haldersons and the Ray Stewarts, and the line goes on and on and on, that, you know, every year we went into this week with hopes and aspirations of ending the drought. And, you know, to actually be alive to see it was a special moment for me.
Richard, how difficult is it to, and I'm talking about the mental side of the game, how difficult is it to walk up 18 at a Canadian Open with a huge gallery and try to hit a shot or make a putt?
Well, it's not that difficult to do it in the tournament. It's difficult to do it with the lead of the tournament on Sunday is the big difference. And I want to go back to 1984. You know, there's only 3 or 4 people on tour. Like, keep in mind, we've had 4 Canadians win on the PGA Tour this year. So
I know,
the evolution is just fantastic. But back to 1984, Jim Hunt, remember Shaky? Everyone knows Shaky. I remember the press conference that he wrote an article that week, and he said, Canadians have 2 chances to win the Canadian Open, slim and none. And you know, like as Lego said, you know, us Canadians playing there, we're very proud. We want to make a stand. I opened up, and that year I finished tied for 5th. And after the first round, I went in there and I said, you know, who says Canadians can't play? You know, we're proud, and we don't like to be disparaged, particularly by our own. And I had an issue with that. So, and then in 1987, you know, it was a big deal for me to finish tied for 5th that year. Then in 1987, I played well, had the lead going into the final round, tied for the lead with Curtis Strange in 1987. And I had not yet learned how to win at that time. I hadn't won. And I'm standing on the tee, and I see all these Canadian flags down the fairway, and I'm in a position that I've never been in before, and quite frankly was overwhelmed. It put me off from a comfort level where I couldn't perform the same way as I did in the first 3 rounds. And I think I'm standing on the first tee. Curtis Strange, the #1 player in the world at the time, he knows he's going to win. I know he's going to win, and he knows that I know he's going to win. And now when you look, then you come through a decade later, Mike Weir wins the Masters in 2003. I think today it's safe to say that because of what Mike did, it's created this snowball and this belief now that we have so many Canadians on tour and winning. Now what Nick Taylor has done, he's going to be sitting as our nation's icon in sport, in golf, no different than Mike Weir and Wayne Gretzky and Nick Taylor. And 20 years from now, let's see what's going to happen with the Canadian players. Golf Canada is doing an excellent job. And this is a natural, not just an evolution, this is a snowball.
So Ian, when you're standing on the tee at the rink, I think that at Oakdale, that was 14. When the gallery's singing "Oh Canada," that doesn't really help.
No. You know, it's funny. I played the U.S. Open at Bethpage, and I was coming up to the 17th hole on Sunday, and that's a whole long story. I will talk about another time with Nick Price and I's. I played with Nick on Sunday there, and what happened on that hole with all the volunteers were family members of 9/11 survivors. And I read an article in the paper that morning. So I told Nick about it. We were both very emotional on the tee, but I hit a great shot up there on 17. It was about 210-yard par 3 at 4-iron to about 3 feet. And I'm walking up to the green, and everybody started chanting Gretzky. So you know, the Canadian you know, atmosphere around that hole and hockey, I think it's been perfect. Exactly what RBC needed to add an element of flair to the event. And I think it's really been grasped, wholeheartedly by the fans, and I love it. I think it's great for the game. I think it's great for the game in Canada.